All right, Dominicans, listeners and the viewers of this afternoon's social media live from the Civic Vibes end, a special good afternoon to you, no matter where you are at this time, whether you're in Dominica, the region, or even further afield. Welcome on board. My name is Loftus Durant. Just in case you don't know, the host of this program. The program is called Civic Vibes, and it is aired each and every Sunday from 5 o'clock. This afternoon, we have a very interesting lineup, a very interesting program awaits you all this afternoon. So all we ask is that you keep it locked right here. The full team is in. Brother Alvin Thomas is in. Paula Celestine is in. She will join us sometimes later as we're about to get a conversation going here this afternoon. And of course, as well, you, our fan base, each and every time, we always cherish your presence. So a special good afternoon to each and every one of you already locked on to the live feed here this afternoon. Brother Lucky Dobby singing this one. If you stand for the truth, prepare to stand alone. And sure, indeed, I believe that line, huh? All right, as we get into the meat of things here, let us take flight, as it were. Let me say a special good afternoon to my colleague here, Mr. Alvin Thomas. How is it and how are you?
Good afternoon, my good friend, Loftus Durant, better known as Lofty, a.k.a. Lofty. I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great this afternoon. Can't complain, as usual. It's been a good day so far. And go ahead.
Yes, I was telling you that is good.
Yeah. No, unlike you, it's a pleasure to be back on the program this afternoon again, and saying a pleasant good afternoon to all our many fans and listeners who are tuning in. So, as you said, we're looking forward to an interesting conversation and engagement. We know our fans and the listeners, whether they are new to this program or those who frequently normally challenge us and always be a part of the conversation. So I'm looking forward to that this afternoon.
All right, indeed. Alvin, thank you very much for your opening remarks here. We'll get back to you in just a bit as we're about to get the program up and running here. Paula will be getting here with us shortly. Just give her some time. She will be here. When she gets here, then she will give you, her fans out there, at least her greetings and her opening remarks. But we have to get the program going. It's already 3 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, and with us here, time is always time right here. So this afternoon, let me touch all of you, those already on the live feed, a special good afternoon to you. It's always a pleasure to be in your company each and every time. This afternoon, as we get into the program, though, let me just shout out the grieving family. Those of you out there who may be grieving at this time, you may have lost a loved one, you may have lost a friend, or that reaches out to you right here from the Civic Vibes team. We know it's not an easy time to be going through that time, but where there is hope, just keep hope alive. I know sometimes it can be tough, it can be rough, but the situation out there sometimes can really, really weigh us down, especially on the losing of some loved ones. In that vein, as we about to start, I want to remember at this time the tragic event that took place some 20 years ago, Alvin. You remember that?
Yes.
That incident?
9/11.
9/11, and today, September 11, 2022.
That's right.
That occurred in 2001.
I recall that very distinctly. I was in the U.S. I'd already migrated, and I can recall being at my home and looking in daze, couldn't believe what I was seeing that morning. It was just shocking. I can just imagine. We were sitting there and just in daze, wondering, is that for real? Is that really happening?
Yep.
And like you said, it was a very, very, very tragic day for us in the United States of America.
Matter of fact, Alvin, I was in the north area, I think somewhere Cortege or Capuchin, somewhere there.
Yes.
I was working then with this new company in Dominica called SAT. That's a company Marlon managed here, Marlon Alexander.
Yes.
And so that job, my duty was to basically, install the service so that persons could get their TV service up and running.
Right.
And I remember quite vividly that morning when I did the installation for someone, either in Capuchino Cottage, somewhere around there. As soon as the persons put on their television set, I saw, a plane kind of going through a building at the time. I didn't know it was the World Trade Center.
Right.
And I said, is that a movie or something? And I saw breaking news all over the place. And so that sight of that plane entering that very tall building, it stayed in my mind up to this day, 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I believe you. It stayed in several minds, several of us, folks who experienced that, not just folks in United States, but folks across the globe who saw that live on TV. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they all have their own recollection of how that in itself impacted on their memory and their lives.
Matter of fact, Alvin, we had a Dominican that was caught up in that, victim of that tragic incident as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our hearts and prayers go out to this family, even in this time as well, as they continue to mourn the loss of their loved ones. I see we have now our co-host, Paula Celestine. She has joined us. Paula, a special good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Lofty. Good afternoon to Mr. Thomas. Lofty, I had a little problem getting on. At one time I was wondering what's really happening. I was saying, don't tell me I'm not going to get on this afternoon, but nevertheless. So special good afternoon to Mr. Thomas. Good afternoon to all our viewers, all our listeners, wherever you are in the globe, in the wide web. I want to say special Sunday afternoon to you all. And Lofty, how has the week been for you, Lofty? Mr. Thomas, I'll come to you in a while.
Yeah,
Lofty,
sure.
How's the week been for you?
Paula, the week had its ups and downs, but thank God at least I'm alive talking to you this afternoon. That is the better part that I want to leave with you. That is ups and downs for sure.
Okay. Well, myself, the week had been a very interesting one. And I want to say, in spite of everything, thank God for life, thank God for strength. And I want to continue, to be of the good courage that I am of, so I can at least encourage other persons. What about you, Mr. Thomas? What the week has been like for you?
It's been a good week, I must say. Pretty much always kept busy. I always have some things to do, like Ted Daly used to stay on DBS, places to go, things to do, and people to see. You remember that line?
Yes.
So I'm always pretty much busy. It was a good week, I must say. Pretty busy week. Went by very quickly. Because of course, the Monday, as you recall, Monday was the past Monday was what you call it now? We had a holiday, Labor Day. This Monday in September was Labor Day, so it was a holiday. But it was a good week. It was a good week.
Okay, nice to know. Okay, well, I too am Lofty. I came in a little bit late here with the discussion, but I heard, part of the conversation. 20 years ago, when the World Trade Center went down, I want to say hats off to the persons who are maybe still grieving today, because when you lost your loved ones in ways like this, at a time like this, it's like it's something that you really live with. It's never really going away. Now and then, even if maybe their entire focus might not be on that, but at some point in time, it really do hit them again. So I too want to say hats off to these persons who are out there and that rather unfortunate situation that took place. But September seems to be some interesting times, because in a few days' time, well, in 1 week time, we are going to be celebrating Hurricane Maria anniversary as well. So it seems to be some kind of interesting times.
Absolutely, yes. You're absolutely correct on that, Paula. Again, it was an experience I had. I was on the island of St. Croix that year of Maria. I had traveled to the island to attend the funeral of my grandmother who passed the month before in August. And Hurricane Maria, I experienced that on the island of St. Croix. Again, man, that was a hell of an experience, having experienced David in Dominica in a much younger age. So yeah, it was an experience. As you know, the hurricane did hit St. Croix, St. Thomas, but it did more damage on the island of St. Croix. So yeah, it's amazing how quickly time passes by.
Yes, indeed. All right, gentle people, let us get the ball rolling as it were. Let me see a special good afternoon to all those already on the live. Let me just touch one or two. Mali Austria is there. Judith Cochran, good afternoon. Florence Bettilia, Joseph Dover, good afternoon to you. Lafoy, Julian, Malin, Schillingford, good afternoon to you. Vernie Vash, good afternoon. And so many of you here this afternoon. As we move along, I'll mention your names, I'll mention your comments, your questions, whatever you have for the panel here this afternoon. Celia King, down there in the Jimmy area, Stephanie John Baptist, good afternoon to you folks each and every time. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are moving on here, this afternoon's conversation, we're going to have a discussion with ourselves here this afternoon surrounding democratic rule, surrounding democracy, what it means to be living in a democratic country, the importance of living in a democracy, the ideals of a democracy, the hindrances, the obstacles, whatever it is, or even possible solutions on how just we can strengthen what we term a democracy. So that is where the conversation going to be centered around this afternoon with the three of us here, that is Paula, myself, and Alvin, and of course, by extension, you, the many folks out there. You can chime in with your questions and comments. Very, very soon, persons, very soon, you will get the opportunity to call in to the program so that your voices will be heard. We are tuning up the technology. In just a bit, you will be getting an opportunity so that your voice can be heard right here on the Civic Vibes program each and every Sunday. So that is the type of conversation we are going to have with ourselves this afternoon. Brother Alvin sometimes later will come in on his usual spearheading of the CCG report. That for sure, from the Civic Vibes end, we are not putting down that report, because that report, as you heard Alvin said, times without number already, that report is very, very important to us as a people in Dominica. And why should we put it down? Why should we let it go to sleep? And so Alvin Thomas will spearhead that part of the conversation later. It will be a nice dovetail into that conversation, because it and out of itself, the report, it speaks to some democratic ideals that the CCG people told us that we must get right before any other election is called in Dominica. Sometime later in the program as well, we'll be informing you rather of a much interesting discussion that we'll be having this Thursday. This Thursday, the world will be recognizing that day as World Democracy Day. That day was declared on the 15th of September, so many years ago, by the United Nations. And so all countries who operate, or which operate rather, with the democratic rule, with democratic principles, they in some shape or form will be recognizing that day. And we in Dominica, we say we're a democracy. It is on the books. And so the Civic Vibes team will be spearheading a discussion with some regional folks out there, trying to get an idea exactly what is going on in our region, in our Caribbean basin, as it were, so that we can try to strengthen that mode of way of life called the democratic way of life. So that and more persons will be in tune for us as we move along here. As we get the conversation going, let me just move across now without further ado and ask Alvin Thomas to basically give us its opening salvo, as it were, on the discussion that we're about to enter into. Alvin.
Thank you, Lofty. Thank you. And again, good afternoon to yourself and Paula, and to our many fans who are tuning in to the program this afternoon. democracy, and it's a word that a lot of us use, seems a bit confusing to many as well. Politicians use it for their own, I would say, it's for their sole interests, some genuinely, some not so genuine. And many of our citizens are themselves not clear. And when they hear the word democracy, what does that connote? And I think it is so important for a democratic state and way of life, if you put it that way. Like you've indicated, in the next couple of days, Thursday, that is the 16th of September, has been designated as International Democracy Day. And that's a day that has been designated by the General Assembly of the United Nations. And it therefore means that every September on the 15th, the world or the UN is requesting civic organization, governments, citizens in large to observe that day of democracy. And it is because 15 years ago, the UN found it so necessary, so important that we pay some special attention to what we call democracy. Let me just, for the purposes of our constitution, just make a reference to the, what one might say, the opening or the preamble of our constitution. And where the constitution begins by saying, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica, whereas the people of Dominica, and it goes on to state at section C of that preamble, have asserted their belief in a democratic society. The word democracy is there. Whereas the people of Dominica have asserted their belief in a democratic society in which all persons may, to the extent of their capacity, play some part in the institution of the national life and thus develop and maintain due respect for lawfully constituted authority. And it goes on further in section E, and it states, desire that their constitution should make provision. Now, what's interesting to me, didn't say the constitution shall. I noted that, and I guess the legal scholars might be able to appraise us why the word shall was not used and the word should instead was used. But it goes on to state, desire that their constitution should make provision for ensuring the protection in the Commonwealth of Dominica of fundamental human rights and freedom. Now, therefore, the following provisions shall have effect as the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So here in the Constitution makes reference to, one might say, democracy, human rights, and freedom. And all of these are incorporated and part of the wider conversation when we discuss the whole question of democracy. Let me just extend that a bit further and state here that the democracy needs strong, accountable, and transparent institution of governance based on the rule of law and including an accountable executive, an effective legislature, and an independent and impartial judiciary, efficient and inclusive public administration, as well as an informed, empowered, and politically active civil society and population. So you see there, Lofty, in that one little paragraph, one might say, the question of rule of law comes in. So it means that nobody is above the law. And when you hear a statement being made by politicians that no law, no constitution will allow them to do anything, that in itself undermines our democracy. Transparency. the fact that government must be accountable to the people. And therefore, when the opposition raises question in Parliament on government spending and CBI and all of that, there must be a certain level of transparency if we are true democracy. The question of independent and impartial judiciary. The question that when somebody is aggrieved and they take the matter to the courts, that the courts must deal with that expeditiously and in a fair and transparent manner. We have seen matters as it relates to the elections. Petitions went to the court. The court, the CCJ sent it back down and said this matter should be heard in the court. But you see where the director of public prosecution, nolly pros, that matter. So is that an impartial judiciary? The question of an efficient and inclusive public administration. I know Paula later on is going to speak on some issues that it relates to that. But when we have institutions like our schools in dilapidated conditions, not allowing and presented in a manner that allows for a good education for our citizens, that in itself undermines democracy. So there are a number of facets that speaks to the whole question of democracy. And of course, it calls for a politically active civil society. And that's where Civic Vibes comes in. And the several organizations that we have to remain active. It is not something that you can start, put it down, wait, watch. You have to be an active participant. And hence the reason why, while some folks might say, oh, you guys keep beating us, flogging a dead horse. Austria says, oh, that electoral reform, this nonsense this guy's talking about, we don't need that. We've had these electoral laws in place for a number of years and it have served us well. We don't need to reform anything. No, democracy is not static. It's an active, and we as citizens have to remain engaged.
True. Thank you very much, Brother Alvin, for your comments here. As we open up the conversation, let me say good afternoon to a number of other persons here on the live with us this afternoon. Laura C. Lesty, good afternoon. Joseph Parilo is watching. Good afternoon to you as well. Dorian Dorival, that is a usual suspect each and every Sunday. This brother makes time to tune in to the Civic Vibes program. I met your wife the other day, Dorian. Lovely lady indeed. Good afternoon to you, my bro, and your lovely wife as well, and the extended family. Marshall Lawrence, always tuned in as well. That is another faithful brother to the program each and every Sunday. John Blanchard, he himself, he said he's locked in. Good evening to you as well, John. You're saying good afternoon to us. Florence Francis, Marilyn Isles, good afternoon to you. Oh, well, good evening already, Marilyn. You're all the way in the UK at this time listening. I hope you and your family, the boys, they're doing pretty well. I'll get to some more names as we move along. Paula, you have a knock at the cherry. Good afternoon to you again, Paula.
Yeah, Lofty. Good afternoon again. Lofty, as you were just saying, good afternoon to a few persons on the live. Let me just say special good afternoon to this lady from Buffalo State, but she resides in the US. And she lost one of her sisters sometime about a week ago. And we never really took a little time off to recognize her. She's one of the regular persons who is always on with us. Her name don't come to mind now, but while she was here the other day, she usually did the walk on a Wednesday. She's somewhere from the Buffalo State area. She's, I think she was a Frederick, or she's a Frederick. Help me, Lofty.
I don't know this name you're talking about really, but there's an Ivinia Joseph always on the live with us. I think she lost someone the other day.
It's not Ivinia. She's in the Buffalo State area. She lost a sister of hers sometime last year with cancer, and then she lost her mom after that.
Who's that? Teresa Rule you're talking about? Susanna Rule.
Susanna, yes.
Teresa Susanna Rule, yes.
Yes. And she, one of her sisters, the last sister, will be laid to rest sometime this week. So let me sympathize with her and the rest of the family as well. Yes. Lucky, I'm not even sure where I should start this afternoon, because like some persons would say that this country is pregnant with issues. But as Mr. Thomas was just speaking, and he said that I will come to this a little later, let me just touch on it right away. And this also has to do with our democracy here. Because when you have ministers of government who had a very good education, because the system before did not fail them. And I'm talking about like the person who sits in the chair as Prime Minister of Dominica, and also the Minister of Education. And the Minister of Education, she was a principal before she went into politics. The man who sits in the chair as Prime Minister as well, he taught at the State College. And it is so sad and so shameful to see that after 5 years, the Goodwill School, the Goodwill Secondary School got damaged during the time of Hurricane Maria. And after 5 years, because sometime later in the week, that's come Saturday, this will be 17 years since Hurricane Maria. And what we've noticed that the Minister of Education and the other persons who sits in this thing which calls a government, they have not seen it fit to do anything about the Goodwill Secondary School. And this poses a high problem for children and parents. Now, some persons may say, okay, stop criticizing the government because they've done other things. I want to say, if these people who sit there today, they did not have a good education, and some of them may not have gotten the best, but if they did not have that education, they would not have been sitting where they are sitting today, some of them. So if you all got this education and it did well for you, and this allow you to be who you are today, why is it that you do not see it fit that these children that have been in limbo for 5 years, you do not see it fit to do something about the Goodwill Secondary School and also about the Dominica Grammar School? No, there are children from the Goodwill Secondary School who goes to the Dominica Grammar School, and these children just have like about 3 to 4 hours a day. How much can these kids really learn? Because when you're talking about education and you're talking about secondary school, where these children expect to do good, and these children expect, you know, to have like, if it's a 7 or 8 hours, or some of them 6 hours, and then you're telling me these children are going to school for 3 hours and 4 hours. How much can these children really learn? Now, the children who goes to the Dominica Grammar School, those who actually are students of the Dominica Grammar School, there's been a problem since the opening of school. Some persons might say it's too early to really bring this forward. I'm saying no, because there was like 2 months of summer vacation, and this was enough time for the Ministry of Education to have prepared everything for the teachers and the students who were supposed to go back to school. 2 weeks ago, we had Mr. Simeon Joseph, who was one of the past principal of the Dominica Grammar School. And he spoke about students going to school for longer periods, teachers having longer periods at school. And what we are seeing now, this is not what that is happening. Because we had the opening of school on Monday, and the children of the Dominica Grammar School, the second farmer student, they only allow 2 days in class. The fourth farmers are allowed 3 days in class. And they are having issues with this online learning. It poses a great problem for the students and also for the parents. Because when you expect to do well at the end of the term, because you have not gotten the education that you should have gotten, then you find the children will have very poor results. And I'm saying the Ministry of Education, you all had enough time. There was like over 2 months summer break, and you all had enough time, and it should have been fit that you all should have done the right things to ensure that the children go back to school in a proper environment. And also, I understood that there are some teachers that have not yet been assigned to school, like the social studies teacher. And this was enough time to allocate a social study teacher for the Dominica Grammar School. So some of the children are still behind, going to be behind with their work. So I'm saying, Ministry of Education, the person who is in charge, Mrs. Octavia Alfred, I'm saying you all need to buckle up your shoes and you all need to do the right things, because all of this is part of our democracy. And we are saying that if the children cannot learn in the right environment, this in itself, it's not the right democracy. Thank you, Lofty. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
All right, Paula, thank you very much indeed for bringing the plight of some of our students going to school here in Dominica to the fore. Thank you very, very much indeed. That in and out of itself, if the conversation we're having today about democracy and good democratic rule, this situation that Paula mentioned a while ago, our students in Dominica, sure has some bearing to do on proper and effective schooling, school hours, especially when you're living in a proper democratic country. But I guess we are not, so these things Paula mentioned about will continue unless and until the people decide that is enough, like any democratic country would have done. Eagle Mike is here. Blessings to you. Margarita Joseph, you're listening and watching. Good afternoon to you. Lafoy Julian said it's Susanna Rule. Yes, we got that name right, Lafoy. Petra Carbon, a young, very motivating, very inspirational young lady. She was here with us some times back. Give a very good account of herself. She's writing here, adding value to the conversation by saying here, democracy, it's a government by the people, a form of government from which the supreme power is vested in the people and exercised directly by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. Thank you very much, Petra, for your very correct comment here. Kerry Lockhart Savage is writing, the government wants a dunce society easier to control. Gertrude Abraham Deja is saying, hi, Lofty, good afternoon to you as well. Gertrude, good afternoon to you all there in Canada at this time. Always locked into the Civic Vibes program each and every time. Hope your little grandchild, your little granddaughter, what's her name? The name slipped me right now, is doing okay, Gertrude. Philson George Sr. is saying, shout out to the Civic Vibes team. Good afternoon to you, my bro. Nalda is saying good afternoon as well. Marilyn Challenger, hi, and each and every one of you out there listening. Share the live at this time as we are into the meat of the conversation here. Brother Thomas, as I get back to you, let me ask you a question that I think is on the minds of a number of persons here. And people, please put in your comments in the chat and I will relay to Thomas or Paula so that, you know, we can do justice by your comments here. Because we always do treasure you taking time off each and every Sunday to be part and parcel of the conversation. So we want you to be part and parcel by we mentioning what you have on your mind based on what you put in the live feed, all right? Alvin, someone is listening out there, someone is watching, and I'm aware of that. They may be saying, why are we pushing democracy so much? And some persons may live in, for example, communist countries, and these persons are enjoying their lives just as us. So the question to you, Alvin, why democracy versus communism rule?
Well, the straight answer to that, Lofty, is that in a democracy like, well, let me see how I would phrase that, because we call ourselves a democratic society, pluralistic type of environment, but on the other hand, some of the actions that our government take, for example, denying persons their right to assembly and protest and all of that, one might say, well, we may be living in a communist state. I mean, you heard the lyrics of King Dai's song, the last song he performed. I think it was last Calypso season. Made the song on whether we are in a democracy state or not. But to answer more directly, a democracy as it is a government in which the power and civic responsibility are exercised by all its citizens, either directly or through their freely elected representatives. Now, we know that doesn't exist in a communist or authoritarian type of environment. That does not exist in China. It does not exist in North Korea. It does not exist anywhere where you have an authoritarian or a dictatorship type of government, and even to some extent in some Latin American countries. So we don't have far to go to see. And therefore, that is why, and again, I referenced earlier in the preamble of our constitution, where it makes specific reference to a democratic society, a society that meets that needs strong, accountable, and transparent institutions. This is what the democracy is all about. If you do not have that, then what you have is a dictatorship, authoritarian, where whether it's the prime minister or the president dictates how you should go about living. And that is why it is so important, it is so necessary that citizens engage. And as I said in my opening comments, democracy it requires constant vigilance. It's a work in progress. It's not something that starts and ends. And where that is taken away from you, you will have incidents like you've had in Dominica, that if you try to raise an issue of protest or raise concern, then you have the head of state referring to you in all sorts of derogative manner. The way in which the prime minister referred to the citizens of Dominica who marches on a Wednesday, raising issues. You heard how he referred to them, lazy, have no work to do. In a democracy, that shouldn't obtain. A democracy gives citizens their right to protest, to assembly, to ask questions of the elected official. In a democracy, in the legislature, which is our parliament, gives the opposition and every member of that parliament the right to speak on behalf of the persons who elected them and send them there to represent their interests. But we see the manner in which the parliament is being conducted. We see the manner in which the Speaker of the House, how he tries to curtail any contributions or by the leader of the opposition or other members of parliament. That cannot be a true democracy. A true democracy is where all ideas contend. A democracy whereby the prime minister feels that as the government, they have to give you the house, the medical supply, the books for your kids, you name it, everything. That can't be a democracy. So it is on the basis of that why it is so important. And that is again why the United Nations, to which there are well over 190 countries or thereabout, of which we are part, subscribe to the principles of what is referred to as your civil and political rights as citizens, recognize the importance of democracy. Hence the reason that every Dominican need to take an active participation and involvement in what takes place in their country. And we call that democracy.
True. Thank you very, very much indeed. Let me just chime in here and add a point here. You mentioned it, Alvin, and Paula, you can start to kind of affix your brain toward the question that I'm going to ask Paula. In that, Alvin mentioned a while ago, and it is well documented, that democracy basically means a system of government that is by the people, for the people. Everything about the people. The people take center stage, as it were. Now, the question that is on my mind, Paula, and I want to ask it out loud to you in particular. What is the role? What do you think is the role of the citizens in any democratic country? What should they be doing in order that that democracy that we speak of comes alive?
Go ahead, Lofty.
Yes, sure.
Okay, good. Lofty, as citizens of a country, in a democratic country, citizens should be free to speak. Citizens should be free to assembly. Citizens should be free to go to their ministers who they have elected or voted for when they believe the things are not going right in a country. And we are not seeing that happening in Dominica. from the biggest amount or the largest portion of persons. And the reason why this is not happening is because a number of persons feel that they will be victimized. No, if more persons were demanding of the persons who they have voted for in government, when the things are not going right, if they were making greater demands, I believe Dominica, as a democratic country, things would have been much better. Because there are a lot of persons, for example, the Wednesday walk. I religiously make Wednesday my day. And there are persons that they secretly say to you, I like what you are doing. Continue to do it. But these people, they say this like behind closed doors. Some persons do not even want some people to see that they're talking to other people because they feel, okay, my family will be victimized. Maybe I'm looking to get a little scholarship. I'm looking to get a pair of school shoes. I'm looking to get 2 books. And these people who knows better, they should be doing better. These are the people I want to say, they have actually failed Dominica and Dominicans. So if more persons would have stood up and said to the persons who that they voted for, this is a democratic country. I believe I voted for you to do the honorable things. And what you are doing, I believe you have failed us. And because of that, we are saying you either need to do better or you need to get out of the way. And that's how I look at it, Lofty.
So you're saying basically the citizen's role is very important in any meaningful democracy.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because it's time the citizens start holding the persons they have voted for accountable. Because back in the days, like you had other administrations, you had like the Labour Party government led by Patrick John. When the citizens felt that he was not doing the honorable thing according to them, they stood up. And today, what we are seeing happening there, persons are afraid to speak out. And even the police themselves, who want to have this encounter with the citizens, who are peaceful citizens, like those who usually walk on a Wednesday, and the police want to challenge them and take them to task. They themselves should understand that they live in a democratic country. Because if we do not do something about what is happening now, sooner or later down the line, we'll just have the word democracy in Dominica, and there will be like, it will no longer be a democracy.
True.
Because if people are already afraid to speak out, where we supposed to be a democratic country, when Dominica come like maybe Venezuela and these other countries where you had Saddam Hussein and you had all these terrorist leaders, Dominicans will not be able to speak out. So we better do it now than it's better than it's too late.
Thank you very, very much, Paula. Your comments, I can tell your response was right on the money. Dorian Dorival is writing here. These sets of people are Dominica's biggest failure. That's why Dominica has gone to its lowest. That is the comment of Mr. Dorival to the discussion we're having. Brother Jeffrey Brisbane out there somewhere is locked in. He's saying he's locked in. Good evening to you as well, my brother. Mr. Brisbane, I am still awaiting my COVID concussion from you. I'm just putting you on high note right here, right now, okay? Although it is on the downside, but I still need it just in case. All right, brother. Philson George Sr. again is writing here. Some Dominicans are sleeping. I just don't understand why the people just open their eyes. Why don't the people just open their eyes and see the kind of bad governance in DE? Ezra Winston as well. He is here as well with us and is writing. We have an autocratic, lunatic, wannabe strongmen calling themselves communists. But based on the teachings of Karl Marx, who himself was a communist and preached that philosophy, none of these men are communists. Brother Winston is writing here, the closest we got to real communism is Cuba, and to some extent when Comrade Chavez was wrong. Your thoughts, Brother Alvin, as we move along?
No, I think the comments, in fact, on point. I was just looking at the feed coming in too, and I see it says, I think it's Joan made the point, Joan Bernard James, democracy is a powerful word. It's derived from two Greek words, demo, which means people, and kratos, which means rule.
Yes.
Can it be made clearer? And I mean, it is clear, it is Greek. Demo, people, kratos, rule, people rule.
True.
It's a representative of the people. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And anytime it moves away from that, and you have what appears to be a one-man rule, then you do not have a democratic system. I mean, when, for example, again, unfortunately, we have to always make a reference to the prime minister and comments that he made. To him, much is given, much is expected. When you have the prime minister in office saying that, I run things in a democracy, are you talking like Xi Jinping or the guy in North Korea? I run things? I mean, this is a legislature, a parliament. Yes, you have a majority as the party in government, but you don't come across in that tone by saying I run things. When you have, and I keep repeating that, and I'm repeating that for intent purposes, when you have a minister, a senior minister in government, comes and addresses citizens of Dominica and says to citizens of Dominica, Gassa, no lasse pi Monsieur Lennox Linton, why don't we just get away with Mr. Get rid of him? And he promised, Ale check pi. This is the leader of the opposition. According to our constitution, this is an office of the constitution. The leader of the opposition is, the individual is a creature of the constitution, which is the whole question of the rule of law. So when you as a minister makes the comment and statement that we should get rid of the leader of the opposition, which is whom you're referring to, what does that dictate in a democracy? That is like dictatorship. That's like in again, North Korea, China, and those places where you get rid of the of whatever that oppose you as a party. You see it and we hear it all the time in the news where we had this guy in Russia that was taken away, he just disappeared. That is what operates and obtains in a dictatorship, in an authoritarian type of government. So when the minister speaks that kind of language, clearly we have a problem, a huge one, and our democracy is being threatened. And I know we indicated that later on in the week, we will be doing a program and observing International Democracy Day. But it's interesting to note the message from the Secretary General, which I'm sure we'll reference later on in the week. And he raises some very pertinent questions. That is the Secretary General of the United Nations, where he indicated that across the world, democracy is backsliding. He made those comments, and he's making those comments based on what he sees, what he hears, what his interaction is at that level of the United Nations. He says that civil space is shrinking, meaning that the Prime Minister himself came in Parliament not too long ago and says, and warned the NGOs in Dominica, and any one of you that try to undermine or do anything, I will deal with all you. Surely that undermines democracy. Hence the call for citizens to be more engaged, to be more proactive, and to play their role as the word itself suggests, Democratos, people rule, and not the rule of one man or a few.
True, yeah, indeed. Let me just get back to some of the live feed comments here. Celia King is saying, it's 5 years since Maria, not 17. The 17th is the anniversary. Yes, Paula made that point a while ago. I guess that was a slip of the tongue, but she corrected it later on and said 5 years. So I didn't really, kind of butt in here. But for the record, it is 5 years since Maria. Our Maria happened in 2017. So sometime this month, we will be recognizing at least the anniversary of Hurricane Maria. Thank you, Sile King, for being so astute in terms of your listening, that I know for you for sure. What's this one name here? Watson Duvini, say here, the so-called leader of the country told the people here and things. That includes democracy. That includes democracy. The free apartments and houses is enough for them. Thank you for your comment, Duvani here. I don't get the point where you mentioned that includes democracy, but it is your point, Joan Bernard. Alvin touched on it earlier. Democracy is a powerful word. It is derived from two Greek words, demos, and demos, which means people, and kratos, which means rule. Can we be a little clearer on that? Alvin did justice to that point a while ago. Earl Francis is listening. Good afternoon. I have many questions. I don't know where to start. Well, Earl, all I can tell you, you just need to start somewhere. You will finish one of these days with your question. Nazrin Prince is saying good vibes. Good afternoon to you as well, Nazrin Prince. Let me see what we got here else. Marshall Lawrence is writing here, civil rights, the most important and yet the most challenging within a democracy. This needs to be diligently sought, taught, and executed as defined and intended by the Constitution. Very good point here, Mr. Lawrence, on the conversation we're having. Philson George comes back and he said, some people are saying the opposition is uneducated, but quite a number of these issues were exposed and so we are enlightened because of the information that Ms. Linton brought to the floor. That is a point that some persons are noting as well. Mr. George, thank you very much. Petra Carbon is writing here, one way the present government destroys democracy is by making people dependent, so it's easy to control them. On that point, gentle people, the point that Petra Carbon raised a while ago, that was my next point I was going to sort of lay on the table for us to examine before the 6 o'clock hour, when we must take a break in just a while. What are some of the things, Thomas, Paula, that we think that have the tendency to derail the democratic rule or the democracy that we're speaking of? What are some of the things?
Do you want me to go first, Lofty?
Any one of you?
Okay, good. Lofty, if Dominicans are allowed to work a decent job, because we would have known, and a number of Dominicans would have known, that the number of factories and business places that were owned by Dominicans that have been closed down since this government have been ruling the country, not governing the country, still ruling the country. If these factories and these business places were to reopen, a number of persons would have gone back to work, and these persons would have been getting a very decent salary. By that, more persons would have been more independent instead of dependent. Because what we've seen over the years, a number of persons been working where they call the NEP, never ending poverty. And these persons, some of them get a $500 or $600 a month. Now, what can $500 or $600 do for you for an entire month, which is like 30 days in a month? Some of them carry 28, but most of them carry 30 or 31 days. Now, persons who knew what it was like to work before, during the time that we had bananas, where we exported bananas to England, a number of farmers, they work on their farm and all of that. These were persons who owned their money, and they did not have the need to go to government to look for assistance. And today what we've seen, a number of these persons Some of them can do better, but fail to do better because some of them want to continue to go out there and beg. But some of them, they really do not have a choice. I have seen Lofty over the past 2 weeks. Let me just point this out very, very quick. I have seen for over the past 2 weeks before school opened up on Monday. I saw the Ministry of Education was moved from the old ministry building and from the financial center to somewhere in Roseau by Macmillan area, somewhere across there, and in a few other locations around Roseau. And I say that to say that back in the days, yes, there were some parents who needed the assistance and their children were going to school. And at the time, you would find the government would have taken textbooks to the schools and then the teachers would have had to deal with that. You no longer see that. So a chosen few who believe that they support a political party, they can go there, they can get maybe a lease or whatever they get, and they go to get their shoes, their uniform, and their books. Now, these are people who just depend on just handouts. There are some persons who I know that can do better, but they still go to beg because these people with the mentality, they just believe in freeness. And these are the people, some of them, by any means necessary, they will want to keep a particular government on the backs of others who really want to do better for themselves just because they want to continue to get the handouts. So to have a better Dominica, people need to be more independent than to be dependent.
All right, thank you very much, Paula. So you're saying that just before you come in, Alvin. So what I caught you said, Paula, was that making the country, making the state a dependent state and not independent as we call ourselves. Having persons come to you to grovel at your feet, to beg you for basic needs. That is what you're saying, Paula, is part and parcel, at least one of the things that sort of have democracy on its back foot in Dominica.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Alvin, let's take a shot with you in terms of where we are now, in terms of what are some of the things that contribute to the non-democratic moves that we see in Dominica. After you, we're going to take a break, a much needed break.
Sure.
Yes.
Paula have touched on some of the areas that I would have liked to touch on, and she was right on point. But let me say though that, and I've said this repeatedly on this program, elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. And in a democracy where the rulers, as Paula said, not those who govern, but those who rule, ensure and does everything necessary to maintain power, is one way of undermining our democracy. Hence the reason, and I'm sure we'll go to that in the next segment of the program, hence the reason that we must not remove our eyes on the ball of the CCJ report. Whenever we are discussing issues like this, it is always important to reference not just what we are saying here on Civic Vibes program, but how the rest of the international community, the region, regionally and internationally, view some of those issues. And previously on the program, I referenced an address made by the Secretary General Louis Almagro, who is the Secretary General of the Organization of American States. And he delivered that address just about a year ago in March of 2021. And the topic was challenges to democracy in the Western Hemisphere, 20 years after the Inter-American Charter. And he was making that presentation before a Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. And this is what he said in his address on the question of democracy. And for purposes of re-emphasis, I'm going to quote what he said. If we shy away from these democratic responsibilities, and he's referring here to our citizens shying away, we will all too quickly find ourselves in a hemisphere of unfriendly faces. You know what he says? Surrounded by regimes who have rejected democracy, instead choosing an ideology of corruption and repression. Now, I pose the question, do we see some of this tendency of corruption and repression in Dominica? Are we saying that the question of corruption, and when we speak of corruption, we're speaking of corruption right across the board, in the public sector, in government, right across the board. We don't have to, I mean, that in itself may call for a separate program. We had what is called an Integrity in Public Office Act passed, an IPO. The act was passed in 2003. It took 5 years before any action was taken. 2008 was the first time that there was some sort of introduction or action on the act. 5 years from the time it was passed, 2003 to 2008. And there then, you had a couple of sessions. The last meeting that was held by the IPO was in 2000, I believe it's 16, either 2016, 17, they're about 18. Since then, we're in 2022. Assuming it was 2018, I give the benefit. It is 4 years since the IPO has met. And do you know what was the reasoning for the IPO? Do you understand what is the reasoning for the IPO? If any one of our listeners are on there now, they can go online. And there is a area under the IPO that speaks of integrity and probity in the public service. And the word corruption is mentioned several times there. Let me refer again to, before we close, Lofty, to the Secretary General of the OAS. And here's what he says. Again, bear in mind, as I said, election does have consequences. There are certain kind of leadership, and he's referring to leadership within the family of the OAS, which includes us, Dominica, and the Western Hemisphere. There is a certain kind of leadership that does not want to relinquish power. They don't want to give up power. For some, when they have been touched by power, they are seized with a desperate, selfish need to hold on. So there is a desperate and selfish need to hold on to that power. Power is their path to wealth and business. Do we see that in our Dominica? Power is a path to wealth and business. We heard the Prime Minister in the recent budget address in Parliament said that he has provided duty-free for the ones who can bring in pleasure crafts, pleasure boat. Lofty, I suppose you'll be bringing in yours shortly, because one of those pleasure craft cost quite a bit of money, okay? He didn't say duty-free for the fisherman who's going to bring in his little motor for his boat or refrigerator or anything like that. But here's what the Secretary General continues to say. It provides them immunity and guarantees impunity and elections. Here we go again. Elections have consequences. And elections have become zero-sum. So it is just, the elections is just a sham if it's not transparent. And based on what the CCJ have said and reference to the tint, it becomes a sham. And it's just a way for them to maintain that power again and to undermine our democracy. If the winner takes all and political loss is met with retribution, so if they lose political office, they don't sit lightly. They will go to the extent. We see what happened a couple elections ago in the Grand Four and other constituencies. It inevitably becomes easy to justify using any and all means to stay in power, unquote. So I'm saying all of that, Lofty, to say and to underscore the importance of democracy. And when we go into that other segment later, you will hear what the CCJ has to say and the linkage that is made, the nexus that is provided as it relates to democracy, election, and the right to vote. They are all interlinked. So if we don't keep our eyes on the ball, we will be a full dictatorship and not a democracy.
All right. Thank you very much, Alvin, here for your response. Thank you very much, Paula, for your response as well. Thank you very much, the listeners out there, the viewers out there as well. Those of you who stayed the course with us for the first hour. It is now 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, and we are into the meat and thicker things of having a very interesting discussion right here on the importance of living in the democracy, of living in a democratic run country. And so we're going to take a little break now. We have been talking democracy, and now here's a brother going to sing democracy for us, and that is none other than King Dice. He calls this one Communist Country. Take a listen. We'll be back in just a bit.
Da 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 da. Democracy's fighting a losing battle in my land, and most of the most educated people live in surrendered existence. And the best way to get into trouble is to try and liberate oppressed people who don't know where they stand. They don't understand that binding together people's power is the only solution for our land. But they want to shut me up. People still free to talk in communist China and Venezuela. What is the big thing? People protesting. They want to shut we up. Are we not free to talk in Dominica and Antigua? Leaders them doing all kind of wrong things. Hear me, take care or you kidnap me. We are living in no communist country.
That is King Dice singing this one. We ain't living in no communist country, huh? To my brother Denison, Joseph, and Pat Aaron out there, thank you very much indeed for the work.
Tell me, who will speak for the country? Who will stand on its side? With poor governance, the citizenry distracted and preoccupied. With basic survival every hour, a gas cylinder or a bus fare, compromise justice under new colonizers, armed and waiting to conquer our land in peace. But they want to shut me up. People still free to talk in communist China and North Korea. People suffering. People protesting. They want to shut we up. Are we not free to talk in Dominica and Grenada? When leaders in trouble, be free in other people. Hear me, take care or you set me up. We ain't living in no communist country. No, sir.
Someone is telling me, Lofty, just finish the program and continue this music, huh? Yeah, bursting a sweat on Brother Dice.
Yeah, man.
If I could, I would, just for you, huh? But I have Paula, I have Alvin to answer to.
Oh, descendants of great Africa, what do we fear? Why do we fear? We prefer to die of stress under the illusion of being safer. Why do we suffer in silence at the hands of a very own who was selling us back into slavery? And no one should speak or protest in a democracy that really don't exist.
All right, brother, thank you very much indeed. That is King Dice singing that song called Communist Country, where he's saying basically we're living in a country where that's supposed to be democratic by nature, but that really and truly doesn't exist. Let's get back to our panel here. It's already 12 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We're going to continue with your comments and questions before we get into the segment of Brother Alvin Thomas, where he's going to dovetail the conversation into the CCG report and tie everything together as it pertains to the conversation we are having here. Paula, before the break, we were talking about some hindrances to democracy or things that undermine the democratic rule. Anything else you want to touch on, Paula, before we take some comments?
I'll take a break for now, okay?
What's that?
I'll take a break for now. So maybe you could go into some of the comments, you know.
Okay, cool. No problem. Alvin, anything else on your mind before we take some comments in terms of some of the other stuff that may undermine democracy? Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, Lofty, I saw a comment on there that says, unless a good 10,000 people not demonstrating in tongue, there's no hope. I don't quite agree with that, to be honest with you. We have seen throughout history, in countries where you had some really powerful dictatorship, Saddam Hussein, you name it, you go on and on. In our own part of the region, we had our own little Gary Mongoose gang. And, you know, I can go on and on. And people have, one might say, see the light or realize, man, we got to do something. So I like this, this fan. I don't fully agree. I still believe there is hope. Let me, again, and the reason why we're doing this program is to constantly energize, to educate, and to raise the awareness of persons in Dominica. Let me also say, though, that I was trying to pull it during our break. The last census that was done for Dominica, which I think it was 2011, I know there's one ongoing right now.
You're correct, 2011, the population.
The young persons below the age, I believe, of 30, somewhere around 50, almost 60%. And I don't think that has changed that much, even from this current census, which we'll have shortly. So what I'm saying, the young people forms a large percentage of the population. And they are filled with energy. And there are different ways in which they express that, and they come out, they explode, if one might say. And they're going at some point, they're going to say, oh, look, they can find jobs, they can get a proper education, their lives are on hold. I mean, when you take a young man who may have been 20 years when this Labour Party came into office in 2000, who is now what, 42 years old? And he looks back on his life and say, at 42, 8 years from now, I'll be 50 years old. What have I achieved as a 42-year-old? Do I have a decent home? Do I have a reasonable saving? Can I send my young son or daughter to college to study? I mean, what is it have I achieved? It's going to have young people thinking. So I don't think there's a lack of hope. Let me again reference back again, which I always like to do for purposes of those kind of discussions, so that we in Dominica don't feel that we are alone. And that's an issue affecting just us. But it's one might say it's global, but we are facing some of the challenges and the threats that undermines democracy. That same Secretary General, in his address just a year ago, I'll quote, "Those fearing a loss of popular support and he's referring here to governments that take on that sort of authoritarian approach, resort to false reform of democratic institutions to maintain a competitive advantage. We see the politicization of justice, independent electoral councils subverted with political appointees. Courts are used to overturn electoral outcomes. You hear what he's saying? Undermine and break up political parties and ban popular figures from running for office. Democratic institutions are co-opted, coerced, and dismantled to consolidate one political grouping's grip on power. We must be willing, that's the part which I want to underscore. So for those of us who are on the live and those listening, we must be willing to speak up early. I think Paula alluded to that earlier. Before these practices are allowed to take hold. Let me underscore that again, Lofty. The Secretary General of the OAS, who is an organization that was also part of our electoral reform, I wouldn't say electoral reform, but our mission to make recommendation towards electoral reform, says there, we must be willing to speak up early before these practices are allowed to take hold. And he's referring to the practices that I just mentioned earlier. So again, I believe there is hope, and fewer speaking that need to be speaking up. But I'm confident that as we go along, as we have these programs with you'll hear more Paulas, you'll hear more Loftus, you'll hear more Alvins, you'll hear more, and several other persons who we hear call out and call out those wrongdoings. I believe at some point we will arrive.
Yes, indeed, Alvin. Thank you very much. And I think now, 1:15 is an opportune time just before we go into your segment where you will be spearheading that effort, Alvin. Let us give the viewers and listeners an update now as it pertains to that all-important discussion / program we're going to have. That will be streamed on our page, Civic Vibes Team, this coming Thursday. That is the 15th of September, 2022. In terms of an update there, where do we want to start? How can we start to give the people an update as to what they can expect?
Well, we can begin by stating that hopefully we will most likely have TDN radio as a part of joining us in that broadcast, in that event. Okay. The details, of course, is still being worked out, and we will advise further on the matter. We'll also have a press release issued on the day of International Democracy Day. As we indicated earlier in the program, that is a day being observed and recognized by the United Nations, and that was brought about a little over some 15 years ago. And it was to raise the awareness of citizens and the need to get them to act and become more proactive in the promotion of democracy. As you have stated, we plan on having a discussion, a forum that would involve not just us in Dominica, but at a regional level as well. So we have representatives from Antigua, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica, that will be lending their voice to that forum. A press release will come out from Civic Vibes, expressing our position as a civic organization in society on where we see democracy and what are some of the challenges and obstacles that is faced. It is my hope that many of the other civic organizations in Dominica will tune in, will support the dialogue, the conversation that we'll be having on International Democracy Day.
Yes, indeed. So folks, those of you on the live now, spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your contacts out there that Civic Vibes will be hosting that all-important discussion come this Thursday from 7 p.m. to about 9 p.m. or just after 9 p.m., whereby we will be engaging, as Alvin said a while ago, a number of formidable people in the region, in our Caribbean space, as it were, because we are talking about the democratic rule in Dominica that is not there. There are also tentacles as well showing up its ugly head in other parts of our region as well. So that is why we sort of broadening the conversation come this Thursday, where the world, as declared by the United Nations sometimes back, will be recognizing that day as the day for all democratic countries to basically say, but more so do something about their type of rule, and that is democratic rule in terms of the appreciation of it. So Civic Vibes here in Dominica, an organization that appreciates that kind of rule, that is trying to help strengthen that kind of rule through this kind of forums, through this kind of discussion, is once again putting on that all-important discussion come this Sunday, where we will be making contact with some regional heads, regional people, to basically help strengthen one another. Because what goes on in Dominica sure has the potential to affect, be it negatively or positively, other persons in our same space. So for example, we may learn some things from Antigua and Barbuda in terms of their contributor on that night. We may learn something from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We may learn something from St. Kitts. And that is why and where we want to bring the conversation home, as it were now, so that Dominicans, by and large, those of you living here and overseas, will come to the realization that, hey, Dominica is not just in a little bubble by itself. We are coexisting in one space called the Caribbean region, at least for now. And so there are certain things that's supposed to be happening in Dominica and by extension, the region in which we live. So on that night, Thursday night, that is from 7 o'clock, you can tune in live here right on Facebook, and you'll be hearing the voices of one Miss D.
Antidian Radio.
Yes, Antidian Radio, as Alvin said a while ago. The voice of Miss D. Giselle Isaac from Antigua and Barbuda. She will be our guest here, or specially invited guest to the program, whereby she will talk to the topic of the solutions, the obstacles, the hindrances, what we can do as a people. A very formidable speaker indeed. She has a political mind on her head, and so we'll be hearing from her. She has been on the program already, right, in Civic Vibes, so she's no stranger to us. And so we expect and we await her very patiently, that is, as to her delivery on that night. That is Miss D. Giselle Isaac from Antigua and Barbuda. We also have another, should I call him a comrade, in the name of Mr. Dwyer Stefan. Dwyer Stefan is basically part of us. We must give him his we must give him his
honorary membership.
Yes. Paula, what you see?
Oh yes, Lofty. Yes.
So legal mind, that is Dwyer Stefan.
When man speaks, you have to listen. Lofty.
And he speaks his mind. He speaks his mind. Very straight to the point.
He's a straight shooter, you call that.
Yeah. So he will be there. He has confirmed that he will be there with us on that discussion. He's a lawyer. And so, yes, his expertise, his professionalism will sure come into play as to what we can do in our space to help strengthen democratic rule here. We have also Dr. Kellen Bob out of Grenada. He will be speaking to us as well as to how he sees things unfolding in Grenada, how things are unfolded as well in Grenada. And so we're just trying to have a nice knitted conversation. So we await Dr. Kellen Bob with basic
and while you're there, Lofty, let me just plug in quickly to say Grenada. Grenada just had their elections a couple months ago. Prior to that election, you had Keith Mitchell in office. Keith Mitchell has been there for God knows how long. And that election, Mitchell won all 15 seats. Everyone. The opposition party had 0, not 1. 5 years later, when they had their election a few months ago, Keith Mitchell lost. A veteran to a young one might say, I don't want to call him novice, he's a prime minister, I don't want to use that word, but a young gentleman by the, just 42 years old from what I understand, came into office and was able to form the government with a good, decent majority of winning 9 seats. So to say to some of those on the live, there is hope. Just wanted to plug that in. So we'll have the brother there to share his own experience with us.
Yes, true. And thanks for that plug in, Alvin, here. Also, as we come down the list, we'll be having also a representative from St. Lucia, that is brother Mr. LeBron. He will be our special invited guest as well, speaking on the topic on that night, sharing his own experience in St. Lucia as it pertains to the topic that we'll be discussing. We also have as well from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have to make a choice because there are so many persons coming on board or wanting to come on board. So we have a sort of toss-up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but for sure, one of them will show up. Either Mr. Bruce will show up on that night or Mr. Leacock. We had both of them here already, and so we know their caliber. We know these are two great, formidable men, and so any one of them will show up on that night. That is a Thursday night. Or maybe both of them will come to help one another, but you know. And so we expect a very interesting conversation on that night. And last but by no means least, for sure, we'll be having I'm going to give you, because these things are flying about, Alvin. I'm going to give it to you tonight. I'm not waiting for anybody to give it to you. We have the Honorable Dr. Alvin Thomas. He will be representing Dominica in that discussion as well, among the many other elite persons that will be on that panel. So yes, Dominica will be well represented as well in the name of our brother here, Brother Alvin Thomas. And of course, the discussion cannot go on without you have somebody hosting it, somebody being the moderator. So I have the very noble task of being the moderator, just to put things in perspective, steer the conversation in a particular direction. And so you guys out there can look forward to that all-important discussion come this Thursday. Yes, Alvin? Yes, Paula?
Yeah, Lofty. Well, Lofty, this is a well put together team for this discussion on the 15th. This is Thursday. And this is why, Lofty, we are asking a number of persons, especially our Dominican public, to tune in, listen what democracy is all about, what democracy should be all about. And for the other persons, the other speakers from other countries, they themselves will actually tell us what democracy is like in their country. And we as Dominicans, we should take a page from their book, because sometimes we hear things and we do not put it into practice. And time again, there are other organizations who really tell us what we should be doing or what we should have done, and we have not done it. So come Thursday, I'm hoping that a number of persons will make it a point of duty for them to tune in, so they will be able to listen to a very important discussion. And I believe it's right on time, because even this week, we've seen what happened in Roseau. And for me, this is no democracy at all. We've had 2 situations for this week, one on Thursday with the young lady from Salisbury and the other gentleman from the Newtown area. And in no democratic country, those things should be allowed to happen. Sure. But again, if we the people continue to just sit idle by, this is what the persons who supposed to be assisting us in upholding the laws, if these people, we just let them just fall by the wayside, they will just continue to just do what they want to do with us. Yeah. And I'm saying on Wednesday night, again.
On Thursday night.
Yeah, many persons as possible should tune in.
On Thursday night.
On Thursday night, sorry, yes, Lofty, on Thursday night. You know, I'm getting this all tied up and twisted up sometimes. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Paula. And now is the opportune time. It's 6:30, bang on the money. Now we want to dovetail or veer the conversation off into a direction where Mr. Alvin Thomas, normally he leads in that department, talking about the summary report of the CCJ. It is all tied into the discussion that we are having now as to the importance of democracy, the importance of the rule of law. So, Brother Alvin, now is your time, as it were, to shine a little brighter.
Thank you, Lofty. Thank you, Lofty and Paula. Thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely correct. That segment dovetails into the whole question of democracy. I mean, this is so fundamental for our existence as citizens and as a people. Just a little over 2 months ago, the Caribbean Court of Justice issued a report, and that report is dated July the 5th, 2022. So it's just a little over 2 months ago. It's still fresh. It's still, as they say, fresh from the press, burn in your hands. It hasn't gotten cold yet, and I don't believe it will ever get cold. And they issued that report. And the report contains 111 sections, or paragraphs, if you want to call it that. 111 sections. And that report came about, as has been said previously on previous programs, as a result of some petitions, election petitions that were filed by citizens of Dominica in relation to the last election held. And it started off at the local jurisdiction, the local courts, and the petitioners didn't get redress. It went to the Court of Appeal, still no redress. And then, of course, it went up to the higher court, which is the CCJ, the ultimate court. Like, for example, in the United States, you have the Supreme Court. You have at the local level, folks might challenge something, let's say in the Georgia jurisdiction courts where we are, and then that might move to an appeal court, and then it finally goes to the Supreme Court. So our CCJ is kind of similar to the Supreme Court in the United States. Their decision is final. And I'll tell you what, again, I have to go back to elections have consequences. We saw what happened with the Supreme Court recently, the decision on Roe versus Dale in the United States. And what the citizens of the United States did, they now challenge it in the polls with their ballot. So, for example, in Kansas City, and I think it was Michigan, where they went, and they took a decision at the local level, which in effect will overturn that decision of the Supreme Court. So that shows you the power of your vote, and the fact remains where elections have consequences. So although the Supreme Court took that decision that they took, at the local level, at the elections, the midterm elections as it's called, they can now go to the polls and vote at a state level to protect, as they say, the women's rights to abortion based on the decision taken by the Supreme Court. But let me just say, insofar as our own situation there in Dominica and in relation to the CCJ report, it is a report that the more you read it, for those of you who may not have had the opportunity to read the report, I would urge you to really spend some time to read it. It is not that complicated. It doesn't have too much of a legal jargon or nuances in there. I'd really urge you guys to read the report. It's available online, and maybe at some point, Lofty, you could, through Civic Vibes, we can reference the appropriate link, and maybe we might be able to upload a copy on our Civic Vibes webpage so that folks can go there and read it at their leisure. But I strongly recommend that we read the report, because as I've indicated previously, this is our blueprint moving forward, guys. Forget everything else that may have been written or said before on electoral reform. We've had several reports. We've had reports from the OAS. We've had from jointly the OAS, CARICOM, and the Commonwealth. We've had from the OAS again, and more recently, Dennis Byron was appointed as a one-man commission to come up with recommendations. In my view, if you ask me, Dennis Byron's role would be more in the area of assisting with possibly drafting of legislations, following consultation up with the respective parties. But in terms of what needs to be said, the CCG have said it all. As I said, this is like our Supreme Court here in the region. They have said it all. They didn't mix bones about it. They were very candid. They were very open. They were very transparent based on what they view, based on what was presented before them, the evidence, all of the details that they had. And bear in mind, guys, the report was issued in July of this year. But the application at section 110 of the report, it reads, the application for special leave is dismissed and the orders of the Court of Appeal dated 21st May 2021 are upheld. So this is a matter that was not rushed, put it this way, by the CCJ. That's a matter that came from the Court of Appeal to the CCJ, and it's a matter that has been going on for some time. And they've ruled on it a little over 2 months ago, or maybe I should not use the word rule, but they provided their opinion on the matter. As in terms of what we were discussing previously, as it relates to democracy, let me refer to two sections of the report. And I want to begin with section 76 of the CCJ report, 76. And I'll quote, as the CCJ making their observation or comments. Indeed, it would be remarkable if the separation of powers and judicial independence are among the basic deep structures of Dominican constitutionalism, and free and fair elections were not. Hear what they said? Indeed, it would be remarkable if the separation of powers and judicial independence are among the basic deep structures of Dominicans' constitutionalism and free and fair elections were not. After all, they went on to state, the obvious and defining hallmark of liberal democratic state is free and fair elections. I would insert transparent there as my own interjection.
Yeah.
It is through such elections that two of the core, yet the word they use, core institutional structures of the state are established. What the CCJs are saying? They're saying it is through such elections that two of the core institutional structures of the state are established. So, and they went on to say the legislature and the executive. The legislature means those persons elected through their representative when we have the election, and the executive in that case being the government, the cabinet or the government, okay? Without any such election, the constitutionally warranted governance structure of the state would simply not exist. Yeah, what they said? Without any such elections, the constitutionally warranted governance structure of the state would simply not exist. So, fundamental to democracy is free and fair election. So, just in a way to respond to some of the comments on the chat, while the urgency is there, the urgency of now is there, and we feel sometimes folks do not come out to march, to protest, and to do what is necessary to force the government or to express their position. One way of doing that is through your vote. Hence the reason we have to strike that iron on electoral reform and to ensure, as the CCJ says, we do not have another election unless certain reforms are undertaken. And one such area we can begin to look at is our electors list, which I have already referenced on previous programs, to which Justice Glasgow have indicated that there appeared to have been a patent non-compliance of the list that was used in the last election, to which the CCJ have agreed that that being the case, if nothing else is looked at, that we need to take a look at that particular matter. Let me go on again to reference section 77.
Alvin, just before you go on to reference 77, the section 77, I just was informed by the technical personnel, by the team, is that that report that you're talking about, it is on our website. And so persons can go there and download that website, take a look at that report, on our website, if they so desires.
Excellent. Excellent.
The website, our website, the address is www.civicvibes.com. Okay, I repeat, www.civicvibes.com. That is CIVICVIBES.com. All right, I just wanted to plug that in.
Excellent, excellent, Lofty. Let me also reference section 77 of the CCJ's report. And CCJ report at section 77 reads, moreover, without such free and fair elections, the preambular value of the creation and maintenance of and respect for lawfully constituted authority would be fatally undermined. These are the words of the justices. The consequences of such a denial that a reflection on Caribbean history demonstrates includes loss of legitimacy, public unrest, and even revolt. So the CCJ is saying that if you fail to do that and to do that properly, these are going to be the consequences. In contemporary terms, free and fair elections are so fundamental to the democratic way of life that without it, the very legitimacy and sovereignty of the constitutional state is brought into question. Constituted as is by, and we quote, the people of Dominica. Remember earlier, I referred to our constitution and the preamble, which starts off, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica, whereas the people of Dominica. So they are referencing from the constitution, constituted as is by the people of Dominica. Going back earlier to the comments made in terms of where does the word democracy comes from. Yep. In this regard, it is worth reminding ourselves, and the CCJ report puts that one in parentheses. In this regard, it is worth reminding ourselves, Dominicans, citizens of Dominica, as he's referring to, the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority or the legitimacy of government, unquote. So I'm saying all of this, Lofty, and our folks on the live, to underscore two things. One, the importance of democracy, and two, the nexus, the correlation, the connection between democracy, elections that are free, fair, and transparent, and your vote, your right to vote as a citizens of Dominica, and to choose and elect a government that represents the people, for the people, by the people. A democracy. And this what I just quoted was from the CCJ. This is not Alvin's comments, This is not my comment. I am quoting directly from the CCJ report. That's where I'm quoting from. directly from the CCJ report. So it is extremely important, Lofty, that we understand that as citizens, we understand our role and our responsibility as well, as it relates to the whole question of democracy, to safeguard, promote, and ensure that, as I said earlier, our democracy is a work in progress.
Yes, thank you, Alvin. Well said. As we steer down the close down hour here, let me just take some comments from the live feed, and then I'll move across to Paula for sort of closing comments or any other thing that she may want to chime in on here. Julia Bonnie is saying on the live, it is sad to see that some of our people will not hold the government accountable and insist that they work for the development of the people. Instead, they allow themselves to become part of the corrupt scheme, sorry. It is disheartening to see how some people of it is disheartening to see how some of our people have sold their freedom and now they're suffering in silence. She ends by saying, very, very sad and heartbreaking. I cannot agree with you more, Julia Bonnie, for your comments here. That is our reality, and you call a speed indeed. Darren Yad is writing here, wicked Dominicans, wicked. They like to struggle and beg, so they like it. Earl Francis is saying, what time on Thursday? Well, Francis, the time we give is from 7 p.m. on Thursday evening on the Civic Vibes social media feed. All right, so again, it is 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. That is the time that all important regional link up, as it were, program gets underway as it pertains to that conversation democracy in our region. Jeffrey Brisbane is saying, Alvin, you are so very, very right. Darren Yard is writing here, no reform, no election. That is all I know. Darren Yard continues, our vote is our lethal weapon. Alvin, you said that a while ago. Darren is echoing your thoughts here. Watson Duvernay, that is Milner, says, Lofty, I know that's not the topic right now, but I want to thank you for what you are doing for Kenesha. Yes, that is not the topic for discussion, but thank you nonetheless for the acknowledgement in that department, Miss Duvernay. Paula, back to you in terms of any other thing you want to chime in on, and then as we look down to the close down hour.
Yes, Lofty. Mr. Thomas have said it right. And like how we said, this is not his words. This is the report from the CCG. Now, I want to make an appeal to all the different political parties, the opposition parties that are out there. Please, the leaders, the candidates that they have for the opposition political parties, don't allow yourselves to go to a next election if this Dominican Labour Party decide to call a next general election before and unless electoral reform is given. In 2019, we saw what happened. In 2014, we saw what happened. But in 2019, it was worse than the other years because we saw time and time again that persons came to Dominica, voted in the morning, some of them, and left the very same day. No, this is the only thing that will give justice to the citizens of Dominica, persons who really wish to vote for a party of their choice without any hindrance in the way, is to clean the voters list, have voters ID card, remove all these dead people that are on the list. And unless and until this can be done, we as citizens of Dominica, we should demand that there should be no election in Dominica. Because there may be some opposition parties that may be saying, okay, I'm not bothered about that. I believe I'm going to win this time around because a lot of people out there, they are crying secretly. So I'm going to take my chances. And even if there is no electoral reform, I'm going to go to that election. I'm saying, no, this should not be done. And we should demand that electoral reform is done before any other general election in Dominica. Because if we do not do that, we are going to get the same result over and over again. And we know what the plan has been. Because we heard about Dennis Byron, who received a certain amount of money to work on the behalf of the people of Dominica. I'm a Dominican. I'm saying I had never been in favor of Dennis Byron receiving this amount of money to work on behalf of the people. Nevertheless, he have received that money, and we are still here waiting for the Electoral Commission to tell us exactly what transpired from out of what Dennis Byron have done for the people of Dominica. But we are saying this Labour Party, they can buy as much time as they want to buy for the next general election. We, the people of Dominica, we're supposed to stand together as one. We're supposed to put our heads together. And they can never kill 17,000 persons who voted the last time for the opposition party. They can never kill 17,000 people. So even if you people do not want to come out to the streets and walk and show that you are not happy about what's happening, we are saying, let's stand together as one in this particular time, that no election in Dominica without electoral reform. And I stand by that. And citizens of this country who believe in fairness and justice, that in no country that a population of 72,000 voters should be registered to vote when there is 73,000 people in the country. And I'm saying I want to stand by that. I will never think otherwise unless and until electoral reform is given, there should be no election. Period, Mufti. That's all.
Yes. All right. Well said, Paula. We'll come back for your closing comments in just a while. Someone is agreeing with you there, Paula, by saying well said. And I guess that is the point you made on no election. There should be no election in Dominica if there's no reform in that department. Let me just take Patricia Fountain is saying very interesting program. Keep up the good work, guys. Brother Thomas, thank you very much, Fountain, for your comments here. Brother Thomas, your final comments. We are on the hour as we speak.
Yeah. Well, let me just say finally, and let me just pose the question. Have we ever asked ourselves, why is it that this administration, which is the Labour Party administration, doesn't want to have electoral reform? Have we ever asked ourselves why that they've been resisting? Is there a reason why they are? Do they realize that the power is in your vote, the people? And if they allow you to exercise that right and that power, that you will win? Because there is a statement made by the Honorable Austri to that effect. I think you played it a while back on this program, where he says, he says, oh, there's no need for electoral reform, whatever. And he says words to the effect that these guys are winning. If we let this go, these guys are winning. So they have recognized that if they enter the race in a very fair and transparent, and mark you, the fact that the OAS and other observers mission may have said the elections were free and fair, that in itself does not make it transparent. That's a complete different ballgame. And they, again...
Alvin, just for a slight correction, they said the election was free, but not necessarily fair. That would necessarily right there.
Okay, that's even worse.
It qualifies the type of election we have.
Exactly. So that's even worse, Lofty. So the point I'm making is that we must not underestimate the power of our vote. And let me just say, to allay some of the fears that may be coming across. And last program, I referenced the elected, registered voters and the population. But that be as it may, do you know that for the last several elections, the voter turnout have been declining, steadily on decline? The last election that we had in 2019, you had a voter turnout of 54.4%. The one just before that in 2014, you had a a turnout of 57.45%. So there's a drop of almost 3%. What is that saying? Is that although we may not see people coming to the street and demonstrating and doing what they need to do, but in terms of the disenchantment, they're not happy with where they are. And as a result, they do not come out. And that is where we have another challenge and an exercise to do, to increase that voter turnout. First, to clean the list and make sure that we have a list that properly reflects your persons who are entitled, quote unquote, registered to vote. And then to ask the question, well, where is the other 45% or 40% plus that are not turning out to exercise their right to vote?
Yeah.
So again, just to end, the CCJ report, and I will refer to it as often as I can at 108. However, there remains areas of grave concern about how the process of these elections were conducted. And they're referring to the 2019 election. Future elections in Dominica ought not to proceed with these or similar things. So my final word is, as we observe 2022 International Day of Democracy, let us become engaged. Let us become proactive. As citizens, let's exercise our rights and responsibility. And like one of the folks said on the live, our vote is our lethal weapon. Exercise that right to vote, and change will come about.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Alvin, for your comments here. Very, very profound comments. I want to thank you profusely in that regard. Paula, your final comments. Thank you very much.
My final comments: Dominicans, know your rights, get a constitution, work with it. When you're being challenged, either by other persons who object to what that you say or you do, and more so the police officers, because they seem to be on a rampant or rampage, whatever it is, recently, because they take law and orders from the ministers who that citizens have voted for. Have your constitution, read it when you're being challenged. And once again, Dominicans, no election unless electoral reform is given. Lofty, I want to say thank you to all the persons who stayed with us on the live. They have religiously every Sunday done that. I want to say blessed week to each and every one. Thank you, Mr. Thomas and Lofty. Continue to do the good work that you've been doing. And have a nice week, everyone. Blessed night as well. Bye, Lofty.
All right, Paula, thank you very much. We are on the money tonight in terms of our ending time, 7 o'clock. So again, I just want to echo the sentiments of both Paula and Alvin here, saying that we always appreciate you, the people out there that always take time off your Sunday. It is your Sunday's time, but you take time off to be with us each and every time. And so we always do appreciate that. On behalf of the Civic Vibes team, the other persons who are in the background doing the very arduous work, we want to thank you very much for that, for your commitment to country and well in one way, shape, or form. Remember, folks, that all important discussion from the Civic Vibes and the Civic Vibes will be hosting that all important discussion with some regional people come this Thursday from 7 p.m. So tune in then. That is it for us right here. So on behalf of Paula, Alvin, the Civic Vibes team, and myself, we are saying a pleasant good evening to you guys. See you till next week, same time, same place.
All right, Lofty, you take care. All right, Paula.
We're having some problems with democracy.